Hello, everybody. Welcome who's coming in. Thank you for joining us for our latest webinar called Phasing Out Pollution. What can the Energy Permitting Reform Act, you'll see it as EPRA because it is very much a mouthful and a lot of words to type, but I will try really hard not to use acronyms. But what can EPRA can do for communities? As you're tuning in, feel free to write in the chat, write your name, where you're tuning in from, and if you know it, because we're going to be talking a lot about pollution today, your American Lung Association air quality grade. I'll introduce myself in a moment, but my grade, I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada, is a big fat F. And so it's even worse where I'm at, specifically in North Las Vegas. So I'd love to see or read the varied or poor air quality that we have around the country for folks tuning in. And we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody to our latest webinar, Phasing Out Pollution, what can the Energy Permitting Reform Act can do for communities. And so today's going to be a really cool conversation. We have some data, never before seen data that we're going to be unveiling to really showcase the environmental justice benefits of this bill. And so I'm happy to present it and show it off. Let me go over the agenda for today. So I'll start by introducing myself. I will be the facilitator today. We'll talk about the problem. Then we'll talk about the solution, which is the Energy Permitting Reform Act. We'll go over the environmental justice benefits that will come from this bill, some of the data that I hinted about earlier. And then we'll talk about our November 19th lobby day that's coming up. And then if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to type them in the chat or put them in the Q&A section. I recommend writing it as soon as possible so you don't, get confused or you forget your question. But if you have any issues typing or you're unable to type your question at the moment, we will have the designated section at the very end for you to unmute and say your question. But let me quickly introduce myself. So hi, if you haven't met me yet, I'm Tori Soriano, Digital Organizing Manager here at dream.org, based in Las Vegas, Nevada, and she, her pronouns. I involve myself with the volunteer opportunities and the digital actions that we have across the org, specifically and mainly for our green actions, our climate justice work. But you'll see me pop up across the org in different areas, supporting our actions and getting people involved into our work. You can see that my title does not say policy expert, so I am in no means the policy expert on this. Our policy director, Kyle, is actually on leave. He's getting married, and so normally you would see him on the calls. Him and I join on these calls very frequently. But I am, as you can describe, probably as like the layman's expert to talk about this information. Probably for me, I take a lot of the legislative policy work that different members of our org are working on, and I translate it for everyday people to get involved and understand it. But that does not mean that you should not ask some technical questions or any questions in general if you have them. And so please, if you have any questions throughout the chat, we do have a few experts from my org here in the room to be able to answer those questions. And if we do not have an answer to provide you, we will either find an expert to do so or wait till Kyle comes back on vacation or communicate those questions to some of our coalition members. Let's go ahead and get started. I want to preface that this is kind of like a part 2 webinar. We hosted a webinar a few months ago called Progress and Power, the Need for Permitting Reform. And so if you did not attend that webinar or you want to learn more from that one after this call, Allison will be posting the YouTube link in there, but in the chat. But we will also be sending it out with a follow-up email after this call, as well as the recording of this presentation. You want to kind of review some of this information. But even if you didn't attend, or you did attend or did not attend our last webinar, I'm just going to be going through the permitting process basics really quick so that you can at least understand the problem and what we're addressing. And so the problem is the permitting process. And so we are calling for a reform of the permitting process to improve, oh, my little things in the way. It is the improvement of the process by which infrastructure projects are evaluated and ultimately approved, revised, or denied. And so every time there's an infrastructure project, a construction project, they need the necessary permits in order to go live, to start breaking ground. This could be a number of different processes, whether you need like an environmental impact statement to show the environmental impacts of your work. And all these different review systems, we are finding that there's a lot of red tape that is happening on this. And all of these little processes, this system we are finding is very slow, complex, and costly. And it is delaying the deployment of our clean energy solutions. And so we are calling upon a reform of this process to help facilitate faster approvals for renewable energy projects and help kind of reduce some of the harmful pollutants that are currently going on because the system isn't working, and create more resilient communities while empowering vulnerable populations to engage in decisions about their health and well-being. And so a lot of these points are going to be coming from a paper that I will be sharing with you at the end. We had Grid Strategies partner with us. They did an assessment based off of the U.S. energy, the transmission impact assessment. And what they found from this assessment is that if implemented, this bill, there would be several different environmental justice communities benefits. And so I'm going to be going through the different points of this paper and showing kind of the data that was presented. And so the first point of this paper is environmental justice communities frequently bear a disproportionate health burden caused by poor air quality from thermal electricity generation. That's just to say that, the air pollution that comes from electricity generation disproportionately affects our most vulnerable communities. And this is probably something that we already all know, that our most vulnerable communities are Black and Brown, Indigenous, low-income communities face the brunt of a lot of these different health aspects. And so we'll kind of go over what that is. And so minority, low-income, and Indigenous populations bear the health burden from pollutants, which include increased susceptibility of heart and lung disease, asthma, bronchitis. They're breathing in these toxins. And then there's even a financial aspect with increased ER visits, hospital admissions, and in an unfortunate case, premature death. Cancer rates are much higher in these locations, and they are feeling the health impacts because of it. And so what the data is showing is that compared to the overall population, communities of color are exposed to nearly 1.3 times more particulate matter of pollution. And all of this has been directly linked to numerous health issues. And so we are calling upon a solution to help with these different issues. And so like in today's rapidly changing energy landscape, the need for permitting reform has never been more urgent than ever. And let me backtrack for a moment, because we make this claim. We're making a lot of claims about permitting reform and the need for it. But it's been actually really hard to kind of quantify the impact. And you can see the health issues that come from air pollutants. And we love to quote very specific clean energy delayed projects. There's a famous one that's been delayed for 17 years. There's another one for 14 years. Um, and so we like to quote those specific examples, but they don't really give a big picture of the entire issue and what's going on. And so I tasked my intern, Kiana, shout out to Kiana, amazing. Her background is data, so she does data analytics. And so I asked her to find and report on all of the clean energy federal projects that are currently being delayed in the permitting process. And she has shown me this data that I'm about to show you right now. Boop, boop, boop. I will preface that this is a lot of data that she's going through, and it's an ongoing project. And so there needs to be some tweaking and then for the final product to be out. And once this data is live, I'll make sure that each of you have this data. But for now, I just wanted to give you a preview of what she's finding. And so we can quote here and there a few clean energy projects that are being delayed, or you might hear on the news an announcement, oh, Toyota is going to build a new EV facility in my local community. And then you don't hear about it ever again until you research it and realize, oh, it's stuck in permitting delays. And so these projects aren't made publicly aware that this is a huge problem. And so I tasked her to find all the projects, and so far she has found a total of 93 projects that are currently stuck in the permitting process. You can see in this graph that it's laid out by state. Most of the states, only have one project. Some of them have 4, which doesn't sound like a lot. Like, oh, one project, in the entire state of Nevada. That doesn't sound like a big problem. But once you start going through the numbers, you can really see that this gets worse and worse. And so 93 projects across the country, that's 93 potential clean energy examples we could have had to be setting up for our green revolution. And then the next graph is potential jobs created by federal energy projects. Once again, this is by state. And she told me that this graph actually needs to be updated because there's a job that has over 2,000 prospective jobs that it was supposed to be funneling for. And so once you start seeing the number of jobs that are not available to us at this moment, you really start to see, wow, this is huge, and it keeps on going. The next graph is annual emission reductions from these federal projects. This bar is laid out kind of weird, but it's supposed to be up to 1 million tons of emissions. And you can see these are huge numbers of emissions that would be reduced by implementing clean energy and taking the case against fossil fuels and utilizing these strategies so that we can make a proper transition and just help with the air pollution that our most vulnerable are breathing right now. And then the last graph, which is probably the biggest one in terms of monetary value, is the financial impact of these federal clean energy projects. And so this graph is in the billions. So you could see we're dealing with billions of dollars of investments to our communities, billions that could be going to the market to sell the case for clean energy, billions that could help build our homes, our communities, that can build more infrastructure, build more cases for renewable uses. And so all this money is just sitting around stuck in the permitting process at the moment because of this inefficient, super complex system. And so let me go back to my presentation. We are calling upon to reform the process to help streamline these systems so that we can help streamline clean energy and make the case for it against our current overuse of fossil fuels. And so the case for permitting reform is increased demand for clean energy. We are using, we need energy. We utilize energy so much, and we need more energy intensive facilities to be able to take care of all the data, all the, everyone wants to use AI, but we need systems that are capable to help with these data centers. And so we need clean energy live in order to see these be realized. We needed to secure our grid. Just modernizing our energy grid is essential for resilience and reliability. We are in a climate crisis, and these outdated, 30-plus-year energy infrastructure, these transmission lines, these power lines, they are not capable of handling all the weather events that we've been dealing with. And, they're falling apart. And so we need them to be more reliable, more resilient. And all of that comes with a cost. All of this infrastructure that is going on comes with a cost with us. And so by modernizing our grid, we will have cheaper power, more secure power in terms of reliability, but also just being able to keep up with our changing weather. And then last but not least, this would help us achieve our national climate goals. Many of you are aware of the Inflation Reduction Act, which was $365 billion in climate investments that have gone across the United States. There are many programs like the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund that are out promoting, giving people money and loans and grants to start doing clean energy development. But we can't develop clean energy if we have a current system that is not working, is trapping these clean energy projects to the point where some of them have just will never be live. They're stopped, they're delayed, and we'll never see them be realized. And so if we want to take advantage of some of the historic climate money that has come out, we really need to make sure that we have a system in place that can handle these processes and at a much faster, more streamlined pace so that we can keep up with climate change. We need answers now. We don't need answers to be delayed 17 years later. So this is the problem, permitting reform. And so now we're going to go over the Energy Permitting Reform Act. This was a bill that was put out, I believe, in July. Yep, it was put out in July. This was aimed to accelerate the permitting process for energy and mineral projects of all types, allowing the U.S. to meet growing demand for secure, affordable, and resilient energy. And so the next point of our data that we found for the Energy Permitting Reform Act is transmission expansion would reduce the reliance on thermal peaker power plants, improving local air quality for environmental justice communities. And so transmission expansion is basically like expanding out our transmission lines, our power lines. In this case, the research paper analyzed both regional expansion and inter-regional expansion through the Energy Permitting Reform Act. And it found that it would reduce the reliance on thermal peaker power plants. And so my question is, does anyone know what a peaker plant is? Anybody? And if you're one of the dream.org folks in the back, don't answer, but just wondering. If you know it, put it in the chat, or if you want to quickly come up off mute and say, you can even say, I have no idea. I didn't actually know what a peaker plant was until I saw the data. But yeah, anyone have heard of it? No? Well, that's okay. I have a video to show you what it's all about. And I want to preface that this video was not put out by our org. It was put out by the Clean Energy Group. They did no in no way sponsor this bill or this information. They just gave a really good explainer on what a peaker power plant is.
What is a peaker power plant? In this short video, presented by Clean Energy Group, we are going to discuss peaker power plants and the risks they pose to vulnerable communities. Before we can understand what a peaker power plant is, we first need to understand a little bit about the grid. Also called the power grid or the electrical grid, this is the way that electricity gets to us, whether it comes to our homes, schools, or businesses. The electricity we use is often generated at fossil-fueled power plants, but a growing number of clean energy sources, such as solar panels and wind turbines, are producing low-cost, reliable electricity. After it is generated, the electricity grid moves the power via transmission lines to transformers and power stations that prepare the electricity to be used by utility customers. Peaker power plants, sometimes called peak plants or peakers, provide power to the grid during times when there is an additional need for power that regular electricity providers are not able to supply. They are used to cover the peaking demand spikes for electricity, and they can be among the most polluting power plants. Most peaker plants are run infrequently, usually less than 300 hours per year, and only for a few hours at a time when called upon, but they produce the most expensive power. Peakers are called on for power if regular electricity generators go offline or when there's high demand for energy, such as on hot days when air conditioners are running full blast. The number of excessively hot days will be increasing due to climate change. In many cases, peaker power plants that use fossil fuels, such as natural gas or oil, to generate electricity, are located near low income communities and communities of color. These facilities release toxic air pollution that can cause asthma, cardiovascular disease, and other serious health conditions. Many peaker plants are located close to the communities they serve, so when they're running, even for a short time, they can have a very bad impact on air quality for surrounding neighborhoods. Peaker plants have been around since the 1950s and they're located across the country. There are more than 1,000 peaker plants in the US. There are 10 metropolitan regions that together have nearly 200 peaker plants. These regions have issues with toxic pollution affecting the health of their communities. For example, in New York City, the Gowanus peaker plant ran for only 50 hours in 2018, but it produced 19,519 tons of CO2. People living, working, and going to school near peaker plants are hurt the most. Peaker plants release harmful pollutants, including nitrogen oxides, gases that, when inhaled, can lead to asthma, diabetes, and adverse birth outcomes.
All right, so that's what a peaker plant is. It's pretty bad. They use it for super peak times of energy needs, super inefficient and super bad for the air quality. And so what we're finding is that we have an opportunity to get rid of some of these peaker plants solely from expanding our transmission through the Energy Permitting Reform Act. And so what our assessment found through grid strategies is that if the Energy Permitting Reform Act was enacted, it would reduce the need for thermal peaker plant capacity due to the EPRA by 2041 across their transmission impact assessment scenarios. And through this scenario, they found that in the Energy Permitting Reform Act, if it was built out in this scenario, it would generate, from this example, 37 gigawatts of power. Does anyone know how much 37 gigawatts of power is? It kind of sounds really puny when you just look at it, and it's a small number. But I gave some examples to kind of help highlight how much that is. And so, looks like one of my texts disappeared, but it's enough to charge 37,000 electric vehicles simultaneously at 1,000 kilowatt hours per hour. And then I believe this one is the equivalent of 39 million solar cells. It's the equivalent of 10,500 wind turbines, and it is enough to power 27 million homes. That's a huge chunk of power that would just be generated from expanding our transmission through the Energy Permitting Reform Act. But the best part is that 33 gigawatts is enough to avoid or eliminate 193 thermal peaker plants. And so if there's over 1,000 in the United States, we might be able to cut that by 20% if my percentages are right. It's a huge amount. So it's a huge amount of this super toxic, super inefficient fossil fuel driven power plant that would be avoided if we enacted the Energy Permitting Reform Act. And so the last point of this paper is full regional and interregional transmission expansion would accelerate the deployment of clean energy, benefiting communities disproportionately impacted by air pollution. What does that mean? What that means is that we could avoid up to 6,800 premature deaths that come from air pollution. We could reduce air pollution that comes from the power sector by 21%. And we can provide up to $60 billion in benefits just from reducing sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxide pollution. It's crazy. And so if you're interested in looking at the full document, I'll give you a little preview. Boop, boop. Aha. So if you are interested in looking at the document, checking out the transmission impact assessment, reading the full report, seeing some of the modeling that it was done to see this data, this will be released at the end of the presentation, or I believe Allison posted the document here. Feel free to check it out. It'll also be sent to you via email once this recording is live, and some of the other documents that I promise we go out to. But it has really cool data. If you're very interested in checking this out and seeing some of the reports, highly recommend digging into it. It's got some good stuff. But this paper was specifically on the environmental justice benefits for communities based off of transmission expansion, and expanding our power lines and our transmission lines. But that's not the only thing that the Energy Permitting Reform Act will do. It doesn't even talk about, all the processes that are delaying the system and bringing on more clean energy projects in the first place. And so to kind of round it out, the overall benefits of the Energy Permitting Reform Act are that it would produce 350 gigawatts of clean power projects, which, what did I say, 37 gigawatts last time? That was like a drop in the hat. We got 350 now. I would bring over $700 billion of investments to our communities across the country. And it is estimated to bring 3 million jobs. And probably the most important piece, which all of these are very important, is that it would make a wonderful foundation for the US to reach its full clean energy potential. It would unlock many of our currently unlocked up clean energy projects. It would make the case for clean energy as being marketable, being valuable, being reliable, being cheaper, much more for a better case, so that we can continue to see more and more projects be built out. And so this is the Energy Permitting Reform Act. A lot of things are going out, and a lot of data coming from it. So I hope you enjoy looking at the data and seeing what is possible. But it's now or never to pass EPRA. We have a window for when we think this could be passed, and it's by the end of the year. After that, who knows when we transition into a new office, if this will still be a priority for folks. And so We need help advocating for this bill because a lot of folks, this isn't on their radar right now. You know, it's election season. A lot of election noise is kind of taking precedent, taking priority. A lot of members of Congress are looking for reelection, and so that's their focus right now. And so this bill has kind of been a little under the radar. Not many folks are really talking about it. And we're even finding that in the last assessment we did, out of 100 senators, 80 of them have not given a stance or say on this bill. And so um, to advocate on it, members of Congress, they don't want to hear from me or, Dream.org staff. They want to hear from their constituents. They want to hear for their voting members on the benefits of having reliable energy sources, more secure um, transmission lines, power grids, cheaper energy. They want to hear from the entrepreneurs that will benefit from their clean energy developments being much more streamlined, much easier for them to get the process through. They want to hear clean energy moving forward, wanting to see clean energy move forward within their communities. And so, um, that being said, do do do. Oop. We need your help, and we are inviting you to join us in DC. My little animation is way too fast, but we're inviting you to join us in November 19th in Washington, DC, with an all expense paid, you'd be reimbursed trip to Washington to help advocate for the Energy Permitting Reform Act. Might sound intimidating, but we would provide the training on how to lobby. We would provide you a lot of these one pagers. We would provide you with necessary tools to have these conversations with your elected officials. And so, if you are interested, if you think this is a great opportunity to add to your resume, to help see a bill come online, highly recommend you join. There should be a sign up link that's being posted right now. I will say that we have specific senators and states that we are targeting. And so it would only be offered to those who are in those target states or districts. But apply anyway, and I will check that. But I would love to see many of you help us, show this data and show these benefits and show how this will really help a lot of communities um, be in the green spaces, green revolution, and join us in DC for the 19th, 18th and 19th probably. So please sign up if you are interested in attending. And the last slide pretty much just highlights everything I said. You'll have your expenses covered. Training and resources will be provided, and your voice could help advance our green future and stop all these delays and stalling in our clean energy. And so that's the end of my presentation. I hope you guys liked that cool data. It was really interesting to see what the impact of this bill could be. I will open it up to questions. And like I said, we have a few experts in the room that will probably be able to answer some technical questions if you have them. But if you have any at the moment, feel free to put them in the Q&A section or just in the chat. Or if you feel more comfortable, you can raise your hand and we can call on you. But let's see if any in the QA. All right, so we have a question. What's the source of the estimated bill benefits in terms of investments? So we had 700 billion for investments and 3 million jobs.
Oh, I can jump on. The source for that is from a fact sheet created by American Clean Power. And I can link that in the chat. As for if you're talking about the earlier when Tori was mentioning the chart that we showed with the different like permitting stalls and the investments, I believe Kiana, our intern, collected data from multiple different places. And when that project goes live with all the different data sources, we can share that with you.
Mm-hmm. All right, I see. Would be interested to see the data too. Yeah, well, happy to share it once it's out. 93 projects. I gave her that project less than a month ago to tackle, and so she's still playing around with those numbers, as well as we'll be able to share out the numbers as well as all the sources from which those projects information is coming from. All right, any other? Oh, looks like we got another one. Does the projects you show as delayed, can you determine the cause of the delay? Are the projects in permitting funded or have funding commitments?
I have not seen the entire chart, but I'm assuming that it is for a number of different reasons. And if it helps you to see it by category of what's causing the delay, we can certainly make sure that we include that in the chart before we share it with people. So you have those details of the different buckets of what's causing the delay to understand what part of the legislation will impact what part of the delay process.
Yeah, Baron pretty much correct. Yeah, there's a lot of different reasons why, and go without getting technical, the permitting process itself is very long and complicated. There's like so many different pieces to this, and that's why we're finding a lot of red tape in this. And so, projects get stuck at different points or different moments, and so we can share that out as soon as we have that data to kind of like round out of like what's the biggest cause in the delay, and will this bill specifically help with that issue? Will conventional energy generation projects be able to use the new transmission lines?
So this isn't a perfect bill, and part of the bill is that some of the transmission updates is for also for conventional energy, but we found that a big part of the bill that is really helpful is that it adjusts the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, to be able to take a control of some part of the transmission greenlighting process, which previously has really impacted renewable energy projects and been in that stall. And a lot of the folks also, I just want to mention that we're trying to take a pragmatic approach by looking at how much ultimately this bill decreases emissions through all of the renewable energy projects that are stalled that will ultimately come online. But we do know from trusted partners and people that we work on other issues that this isn't, the perfect piece of legislation, because there are other pieces of legislation that also apply to fossil fuels. So I really appreciate all of those questions about whether or not different pieces of the bill are also going to make it easier for fossil fuels to get transmitted or to be built out, which is unfortunately a political reality, that some of the ways we'll be able to get permitting reform is through bipartisan efforts that also include traditional energy. But I am not the expert and detailed expert on permitting and transmission. That is our colleague Kyle, who is out currently, but will be back on Monday. So if you have specific and detailed questions, questions about that piece of legislation, he is more than welcome to answer your questions. So I will put his email in the chat, and anything that I can't answer perfectly, he will.
Yeah, and I will say that the one pager that we're sharing out with the environmental justice community benefits from transmission expansion, he is a co-author on that one pager. And so if you have specific questions about that, his email is also going to be on the one pager as well. Do you know if there are, do you know if there are any comments from the utility companies? Plus, then I don't know. The Q&A, I guess, is supposed to be anonymous, but the person who put this question said they would be interested in helping the effort. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question was, let me pull it up. Have there been any comments from utility companies on this bill?
I have not personally seen many comments, but I know that the large renewable energy associations like American Clean Power are in support of the bill. I'm sure some utilities would benefit from having easier transmission laws and being able to better utilize energy that's not in their locale. But if that is something that is specific to you that you're interested in getting answered by our policy experts, I can certainly ask some folks that work in utilities that question and get back to you.
Yeah, and I believe we've had webinars on permitting reform in the past from some of the folks in a lot of these like electrical unions and workers in that field. And so I know there's a lot of folks within our own coalition that are in those fields that have support for this bill. And I'll just read this out loud for folks who are going to be watching the recording. The dream.org one-pager numbers mostly came from the DOE's transmission impact assessment report. That is correct. And so they used that report. This report was created in October 2024, and then Grid Strategies took that, or was it October? I'll have to look at the one pager. They took that report and then built out some modeling based off of the results that EPRA would bring. Okay. Now, one more notification. There we go. Okay, I think that's it for questions, unless someone has a burning one to add at the very end. But if not, I believe you put Kyle's contact, right, in the chat. Yep, perfect. That's Kyle's email. Feel free to ask him any more technical questions. But if you have any specific questions about the webinar, you can always send them to me too. I can always segue them to get the right answer. But this is my contact information. Yeah. Kyle is a very smart, well-dressed dude. And he's he loves to talk to folks about this, and so don't feel shy to talk to him, especially because he's not here. But highly recommend reaching out to him. But you can always reach out to me, and I'll make sure to forward that information to him or some of our other policy experts.
Yeah,
But
he decided to go back to law school to be able to better understand this work. So he's an energy lawyer and can answer any of your more technical questions.
So smart. All right, well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining in, tuning in for this webinar. Like I said, this presentation, a lot of the one pagers that were shown in the chat, the contact information for Kyle, as well as I believe this a slideshow, and all of this will be sent out once the recording is on YouTube, so that you can have this information shared out. But please let me know if you're interested in joining us on Lobby Day. Sign up using the sign up page. That sign up will also be sent out if you didn't get it here. But thank you everybody for tuning in. Have a wonderful Thursday. Yeah, send us any additional questions. We want to hear them. Bye, everybody.